Hello and welcome back, and today I want to talk about QTS 4.4.1. It's finally been released and pretty much available for all the QNAP NAS series, particularly the Intel based x86 CPU NASes. I know some of the other lesser NASes haven't got quite all the same features and functionality, and today I want to talk about QTS 4.4.1. But I've got a few caveats straight off the bat. First and foremost, throughout the video, you are going to notice the little QBoost robot here on the left saying occasionally insufficient memory. This is because for this video, I wanted to utilize a NAS that was slightly less than top end. I thought if I use a really powerful NAS like an 72XT series or even a 453BE, something like that, I thought it wouldn't be fully representative of what a lot of you mid to low range QNAP NAS users are going to experience. So I wanted to go for a NAS where the specifications were, although not low, were not exactly top end. And today I'm utilizing the TS251B, a breakout success of QNAP NAS ranges, and it features a dual core Intel Celeron based CPU and 2 gig of memory. So once again, not earth shattering, but at the same time, not exactly low end. So this NAS, which retails for about 250 to 230 quid, if we have a look at the hardware readily available on this device, we've got that quad core 2.0 CPU and stuff like that, but it is more than enough for this new and latest release of the QTS 4.4.1 system. And what I want to talk about today is some of the things that you would get used to and some of the stuff that has always been there in QTS, along with a bunch of new things. And at the end of the video, I will be sure to go through QTS's 4.4.1 page from QNAP to make sure I haven't missed anything. But without further ado, here we are on the default user interface. And again, throughout this video, I will be using the screen recording software OBS, Open Broadcast Studio, so there may be the odd performance dip. That's nothing to do with the QNAP NAS and all to do with my recording software. So, QTS. For those that aren't aware, this is the graphical user interface and operating system of QNAP NAS. It's completely for free and arrives with a whole host of applications as well as back-end control and security. Now, this software has already evolved over many years, and the QTS or QNAP Turbo NAS system, I think QTS stands for. This software has evolved from a simple file structure system all the way through to a complete user interface. And there are loads of apps. And I'll get to the apps later on, but for now, let's look at the back end of things. Let's look for a start at that storage manager. What we're going to look at right now is what's current and what's new. First and foremost, because this is a 2-bay NAS, we've got those 2 drives there, and we can find out loads of ready information about those disks, everything from their available storage. I'm utilizing a couple of 16 TB Seagate Iron Wolf NAS hard drives, and on top of that, we have got also facilities for snapshots, Ssd caching, as well as individual volumes, and a whole host of features and functionality, as well as in QTS 4.4.1, improved support of fiber channel operations, which I know you high-end business users will definitely want to take advantage of. Now, snapshots are very easy and can be generated very quickly, as well as the edge here, it's letting us know right now that we do need snapshot protection. Now, snapshots are one of these things where they are kind of a micro kind of system image of all your data that can be stored. It utilizes much less space than an overall backup, and over time will allow you to scale your system back to an earlier revision of the data and setup. While we're talking about the notification there and just the letting us know right now that there's things that we can and cannot do on this device to improve things, if we head over to the help desk system, there's also this and a system security application where we can find out loads of real-time information about our device and how to improve our storage array, with loads of system scanning tools too. Now, from this storage user interface, just like before, we have got this new, we've got this graphical interface here that gives us images of the individual NASes we've got, as well as the drives, and we can get real-time information about the disks, everything from smart tests to scheduled tests of those drives, and with Seagate drives, the Seagate Iron Wolf Health Management System, which is currently not available on the latest version of Seagate's 16 TB drives, but what I will say is it won't be very long before Synology, QNAP and the rest of the NAS brands sign off on that and this will become readily available on this screen. Now, other areas of improvement in the latest versions of the software from QNAP have been in the field of virtual JBOD use and Ssd cache. Now, virtual JBOD is the ability to incorporate other NAS devices in the localized network and attach them to your storage. They can be over the network or over the internet, and it allows you to bolster your storage in a number of ways. And I recommend you do check out my video on virtual JBODs. Alongside that, we can talk about Ssd caching and the different ways in which the QNAP will allow you to merge both hard drive and SSD level storage into your system environment, with QTIer being that great multiple tiered system of storage that QNAP offer, where you can spread your data across different media speeded areas of storage, from hot, cold and mid-level, as you can see there, across your storage array, and with a variety of PCIe upgrade cards, as well as support of different media types from NVMe and SAS to traditional hard drives and SSDs at SATA. There are loads of ways in which you can have multiple layers and multiple floors of data across your storage array, and therefore have the right kind of data living on the right kind of storage area. Now, external RAID devices such as the TR004 and TR002 allow you to attach and bolt on external devices and external expansion devices to improve and increase your overall capacity. So even a 2-bay like this can be bolted on with a 2-bay, a 4-bay, a 5-bay and an 8-bay of additional storage, as well as that virtual JBOD feature we talked about. And of course, you can perform performance tests on each of the individual media you have inside, and that can be scheduled and more. Storage and snapshots we've already kind of talked about there, which allow us to look at things like RAID arrays, as well as view and overview our available snapshots we've created in the background. Now, I know compared with some other brands this may seem a little technical, but trust me, it's incredibly intuitive and user friendly and doesn't require that much background knowledge in the field of networking or IT. Now, this device has a PCIe upgrade slot, so whether your NAS has got a PCIe upgrade slot, or you're installing SSDs in available bays, or you're utilizing one of the QNAP NASs that has dedicated SSD slots, this is where you can create those areas of fast-acting SSD cache, and they're really easy to set up, and the system can be set to manual or automatic to have data mirrored and moved around within the storage array. So once again, move your storage onto the platform where it needs it most. And if you're looking at Thunderbolt or 10GBE or 5GBE NAS systems, then this will be of significant benefit and improve those hard drive RAID arrays. Now, if you're attaching devices over USB or other external devices, they will appear here. And once again, you can interact with them in a myriad of ways, not just as a simple form of external storage. And with regards to those snapshots, this is where we can create those snapshots in the background, as well as see history of snapshots if we create them right here, so we can revert to an old snapshot if needed. And then of course we've got that new fiber channel and iSCSI LUN target support, with a new dedicated area just for you fiber channel users that want to incorporate an intelligent QNAP NAS into your storage array. So while that opens that app in the background that we're probably not going to use because we don't have an iSCSI set up today, we're just going to close that and make our way further into the control panel. Now, the control panel we've already kind of talked about in other videos, but I want to go into a little bit more detail about it today because they've shifted a few things around. First and foremost, a number of the individual apps have been moved into the control panel, such as the storage and snapshots area we have been looking at. You can do everything from here, everything from creating users and creating groups of users, each with their own dedicated login, password, storage quotas and permissions to access files and folders, as well as assigning quotas and changing those quotas as needed. With regard to the system, you can go to the notification center and tailor how you want to receive notifications from everything from drive failure to system access, DDoS attacks, and RAID performance drops and issues can all be set here so that different alerts arrive in different ways, and you can come up with much more bespoke and much more system-friendly ways in which you can stay on top of your device and all the different alerts that need to happen, with multiple forms of contact all being supported, each within their own subgenre. moving forward from that, we can carry on looking at a number of these different ways in the back end that we can control our NAS. Now, with everything from scheduled power up and powering down, as well as integration with the QWL100 external wake on LAN device, there are a number of different ways in which you can interact with this device. I'm not going to go into all of them because there are loads of ready options available here. And of course, each of them mean that you can really change and set up a very bespoke storage interface. And one of the main ways in which NAS is greater than cloud is because a NAS, you could have 1,000 NASs on the field, and each of them can have completely distinctive security arrangements. And as 1,000, you could set 10 or 100,000 NASs that way. Now, with different logs and security protocols in the background, as well as individual apps that are tailored towards security, I'm pleased to say that the security backend on a QNAP is almost unparalleled compared to other NAS platforms, simply because of the sheer weight of different security protocols readily available to you at the off. Now, going back into that control panel that we were talking about earlier, one thing I do love to talk about is the network and virtual switch, and I'm aware how dull that sounds, but QNAP have managed to create a far more user-friendly version of network control than any other NAS brand. Now, to put it into perspective, this NAS here I set up in a different room to the room it is now found in. Consequently, it has noticed there was a DNS error, something it has fixed of its own volition. Now, on top of that, with the network virtual switch, you have got a topographical and much more visually enabled way to overview your network connections, whether you're using USB dongles, 10 GBE or 1 GBE. These network interfaces can even be set up on a graphical level for you to see a map of your storage network and all the devices that are connected. And you can move these around readily and create a bespoke storage environment. And if you're using container or virtual appliances, they can all live and be connected to this virtual switch too. So you can actually see virtual instances and how much network bandwidth and speed they are utilizing. Now, all of the settings can be changed very easily here, as well as ways to interact with and add the DNS support of different connections. And when you set up your QNAP NAS for the first time, you are invited to set up your MyCloud account. And it's through here that we can enable access via the internet to our QNAP NAS, not just the network. Do check out my video on how to access your QNAP NAS over the internet. But that is definitely one of my favorite tools of QNAP NAS. And even though this revision came about in the 4.3.5 update, I'm still very impressed by all the different things that this is capable of handling in such a user-friendly way. Now, moving away from the control panel, because there's lots of different features and functionality here that we are going to review later on, let's have a look at those apps. I've already pre-installed a bunch of apps, but just how easy is it to install apps on this device? Well, head over to the App Center and I'll show you. The App Center here will list everything. If you've got an internet connection, there are loads of first-party QNAP applications which arrive with regular updates over time. Updates you can either install manually or let the updates automatically update themselves. You can also add unofficial app centers with loads of other applications readily available, such as Kodi, what we were using in our previous video to install unofficial apps. There are loads, and I do mean loads, of applications, with the added bonus that there are dedicated multimedia add-ons and multimedia applications that I'm going to talk about later on. With Hybrid Desk Station, of course, you have also got a much, and I would say first-class HDMI dedicated portal access point to your QNAP NAS. There are several NAS brands out there that arrive with HDMI support, and although some of them do quite well, none of them are as good as QNAP's own application here, where if you connect an HDMI port cable on a visual device, you can access all of these applications along with a whole host of unofficial ones too, as well as create a standalone surveillance platform with a keyboard, mouse and visual monitor, all the while the QNAP NAS is being utilized normally for all of your storage needs. Now, I've already installed a whole host of applications here, some of which we'll talk about. There's obviously multimedia applications such as Photo Station, Music Station and Video Station, but on top of that there's Virtualization Station for your virtual devices, and again if you're going to be using a virtual Windows machine, Linux, Ubuntu, Android, they are all hosted here with that app. If we take a look at the app very briefly, because we have dedicated videos to a number of these applications, if you are looking for the best virtual machine NAS, you will be hard pushed to find a better platform than QNAP NAS. You can see right now we've already utilized quite a lot of memory there in the background, so I'll leave that in the background and we'll open that up in a wee moment. Now, other things such as our Ssd Profiling Tool that will allow us to decide the best way to lay out our SSDs, as well as enabling things like SSD over provisioning and check out our existing fast acting storage array, will allow us to make sure that our device is set up to the exact specifications of our network environment. QNAP also has its own dedicated and top tier surveillance platform known as QBR Pro, and with the majority of modern NASs these days you get 8 camera licenses, way better than the 2 licenses you get from a number of other visual surveillance platforms dedicated on NASs from their rivals. Now, it has a single user interface, it's got lots of other security built into it, and I have done whole dedicated videos on QBR Pro, so I won't talk about that too much. QVPN allows you to utilize multiple VPN providers to keep your NAS secure, and you can just add your third-party providers to this, and therefore make this your VPN access point for other devices and keeping your network watertight and stopping people monitoring your usage. Now, carrying on, you may also have noticed several betas. These betas, some of which are very close to full release, and I've already talked about Qmagi, that incredible photo recognition tool that allows you to not only access the AI and machine learning backend that allows you to not only recognize faces and catalog faces so they can be searched for later under their, by their pseudonyms, but it can also identify things, so food, drink, places, items, subjects and more. And I do strongly recommend you check out my video on Qmagi, because to me, for my money, it is still the very best photo cataloging tool right now for NAS, and even challenges some of the top tier third-party cloud platforms like Google. QSearch allows you to have a dedicated one portal access search point of your NAS that's intelligently back-ended, with the added bonus that not only can you do multiple searches at once, but on top of that you can also search for subjects and more. The virtual machine platform we talked about earlier on still requires an element of setup, and unfortunately this NAS with only 2 GB of memory is insufficient to run Virtualization Station. I recommend you check out my video on Virtualization Station, because there's a whole lot to learn there about that tool. Now, QSearch allows you to do intelligent searches of your NAS, and once you have done a search, it has intelligent filters that change based on the search result, as well as the search media you have in mind. It's also supported and utilizes a number of the key features of Google's own online search functionality, and even pairs with QNAP's own email agent, Qmail Agent. And from here, you can also use a number of online search tools, as well as compatibility with your client application on your PC or Mac that browses files such as Windows Explorer and Mac's Finder app. With these searches as well, you can look up all kinds of things. So when you do a search, not only can you do a standard search, but you can search by different subject matters and do multiple searches within one window as well. These searches can be exploring the NAS or exploring different locations, and with this intelligent search tool, it is so much better to search through things in this way. Now, the filters on the side allow you to not only include filters, but exclude filters too. And once you amalgamate it with other applications and other tools, you have got a much better search tool that is both responsive and useful. Qfiling allows you to completely sort through different archives of data storage on your NAS and correlate them in an intelligent way, and that it also works with that QSearch tool to create that much more bespoke file environment for your needs. Now, we've already talked about QMAGI and other intelligent applications, but we can also talk about intelligent applications for you that are far more in the back end with the multimedia console. Now out of beta, the multimedia console is your single access point to indexing your media on a NAS. For those that aren't aware, most NAS media, or indeed most NAS files, require indexing in a number of ways. Even though you've got piles of data on your NAS, when you have to sift through it or retrieve it in more bespoke fashions, maybe as photos, as music, as videos over DLNA, indexing is key. And Multimedia Console allows you to control all of your indexing, your transcoding, and all of that thumbnail generation that photos need that really do slow down most NASes, all from a single access point. You can push them all to happen individually or create a schedule for these things to happen. On top of that, indexing can be done as a low, high or medium priority, and that is with regard to different kinds of file types. Transcoding, you can set up on the fly and offline transcoding easily from here, and thanks to applications with the QMAGI Intelligent AI Core, a lot of the multimedia console and results that QMAGI provide can be cross-referenced across other platforms too, enabling you to use the tags that are generated by QMAGI in those other areas. And with the AI engine regularly being updated and the latest version due an update soon, as well as the surveillance platform having facial recognition too in a very soon update to QNAP's QTS system. I'm looking forward to seeing that on QVR Pro. There are loads of applications, but what about the particularly new ones? Well, there has been an update to Hybrid Backup Sync. This is the one portal access point to migrating data to and from your QNAP NAS, and it's been made even easier to integrate with existing systems, as well as an improved overview, much like we saw for the network switch. And I've got a whole dedicated video for this tool that, if it's not already published, will be ready very soon. So it is a much better way to see how data interacts with your device, as well as the support of the new QDedupe, which is the means when you're backing up from one or more sources which have exactly the same data, but you don't want to back them all up. You just want to back up one copy of that data, and then it keeps a record of all the other instances where that data is located, massively reducing wasted space in backups. Now, one area of which I'm very impressed is the beta of Hybrid Mount. Now, for those that aren't aware, this is a feature that Synology had something similar to promised in DSM-7, which we've yet to see, and QNAP have now got it readily available. This is the ability to mount cloud-based and off-site storage and make it locally accessible in a far more integrated way. Now, other brands, including Synology, are only providing this in a very, very slimline form, with Hybrid Mount for QNAP being way, way better, because it's allowing you to integrate multiple cloud platforms, not just proprietary first-party ones, with the added bonus that you can create more than one instance of that, although you do need additional licenses to mount additional cloud platforms. And if you do have backups taking place to cloud platforms, this allows you to see that cloud storage as if it was localized file access. Again, very handy tool, and very impressive that it's readily available, not only right now from QNAP in their latest version, but also on something as easy and simple going as the TS251B. Now, that is kind of the key instances. We've got updates to almost all of the other applications, such as Download Station and the proprietary apps, as well as a bunch more third-party apps added too. I've mentioned earlier on about some of the security protocols. It's worth mentioning that they've introduced not only updates to the Malware Protector that protect you from things like ransomware and just general hack attempts, but also you can attach McAfee that's always been there. But what I really like is the Security Counselor. I've already done a dedicated video on this, but it is worth reviewing, because if you are someone that is going to be having a lot of data living on your NAS and you're not too sure how to keep your data safe, the Security Council is very much going to be the one for you. It looks at your storage array, looks at the wealth of data, and then it makes recommendations of how to protect you and where you are vulnerable. A very, very useful tool indeed. Now, you may have noticed along this top bar, there is another tool that I've not talked about yet, Qmix. Now, Qmix is this cool little app that allows you to access your multiple platforms via a single user interface. Let's install Nakivo as well while we're here. We've got nothing to lose there. If we move forward, we can look at some of the other applications readily available in your QTS 4.4.1. Qmix is QNAP's own alternative to things like IFTTT. It's the bridging of different platforms and creating mixes whereby A means B. If you receive a message on this platform or an attachment, it can then be distributed to another. And it is kind of the core principle behind things like IFTTT, but with QNAP moving more and more into Internet of Things or IoT applications as well as smart home implementation, something like Qmix under QNAP's own umbrella is very, very advantageous, and I am going to keep an eye on this particular app. I don't have a dedicated app for it yet, a dedicated video, but I will be keeping an eye on that one. Now, I mentioned Hybrid Desk Station earlier on because it is worth highlighting that it is still unparalleled for other in the world of NAS. If you do make your way onto Hybrid Desk Station there are lots of things you can do in order to install more applications as well as access these apps via that visual user interface. If you go into the settings menu, and do remember that you don't need to necessarily connect via HDMI to access the HDMI application on your QNAP NAS. Here earlier on we installed Kodi unofficially onto a QNAP NAS, and if we come out of that and go back to our original user interface there of a Hybrid Desk Station or HD Station, you'll be able to see a host of other applications that are readily available on our QNAP NAS, as well as QNAP supported ones like Spotify, create Skype applications, and if we've installed a virtual machine or an Linux-based VM, they can be readily accessible here with a keyboard, video, mouse setup. QVR Pro client allows us to view our cameras, and we can attach a keyboard, video, mouse to that and have our standalone enterprise level surveillance solution. But let's make our way back to QTS 4.4.1 on a desktop user interface. Now, that is pretty much all of the core applications, and as we've discussed, there's been a bunch of betas added too. The user interface is a little quicker. They've definitely sped things up a little bit, and even on this NAS, this 251B, which is relatively underpowered compared with many, it's still pretty prompt and still pretty damn responsive. For those of you out there that are wondering about Linux support, the very latest version 18 of Linux and Linux Station is now readily available on the QNAP NAS platform, so you can create multiple VMs for home or business use, all readily available. I have done dedicated videos on most of these apps, and for the most part they will still be relevant. Although there have been tweaks, there is definitely more to see in QTS 4.4.1. Now, there are things I've not been able to show you today. There have been areas of storage that have improved, with background integrity of data, and those checks that happen have been largely improved. If we look in the background there at QNAP's own page, we can look at some of the things they wish to highlight. Virtual JBOD, of course, is something we've discussed, and hybrid mount QMAGI and HBS3. With improved fibre channel SAN support, I'm hoping that we will have a dedicated SAN video with some of those TD units arriving soon from QNAP. On top of that, when you do want to create a SAN-based environment with your network attached storage device, which to me is something that I can barely get my head around, that is going to be something you data center and enterprise users that have been utilizing, I would say slightly outdated HP servers will definitely see the benefit of. And with the new improvements to Ssd caching with the movable Q tier and remote access tiering and tiering control, that is something that a lot of you who are creating more bespoke Q tier environments will take advantage of. Finally, let's move into some of the branding improvements. We clicked on Nakivo earlier on as that kind of cloud-based management and cloud integration offsite backup tool. But For you guys that are very, very interested in the world of SSDs and SSD caching, this is actually quite interesting. There aren't a lot of NAS brands out there right now that support self-encrypted drives. These are drives where they've got a little bit on board that if someone steals your QNAP NAS, it won't matter, because even if they know the login for the NAS, they won't have access to the drive media without that Ssd key. And again, that makes it largely useless. And with theft being always a present concern, it's good to know that we're seeing increased coverage of Ssd drives. Now, they don't cover Ssd hard drives currently. With very few brands supporting self-encrypted drives in hard drive form, you can still encrypt everything from folders to the whole volume on your QNAP NAS, but due to the lack of support of SSD hard drives, we are not seeing full system Ssd coverage yet from QNAP. And with most of these things discussed, I do think we should wrap things up here with QTS 4.4.1 on QNAP. Definitely a speedier version. They've definitely tightened things there in the background. And on this NAS, it has to be said that for such a mid to low spec NAS, we are seeing some great performance on it. There's that security counter. Why don't we have a quick look at that before we go? And from here, we can take a good look about how the device advises you to make security your priority, but also making it automated in the background. Creating security policies based on how you're going to access data and what kind of security level you desire. The device will then scan your local system to figure out what apps you need and where the holes are in your security protocol. So it's already advising me to install the malware remover, which I'll do there in the background. But on top of that, it will also scan everything from our IPs and the gaps in our security setup. But of course, there are other tools for our storage protection as well. So I'm going to wrap things up here for QTS 4.4.1. I've got to say, if you already own a QNAP NAS, there's absolutely no reason not to update this right now. And if you are considering a NAS drive right now at the end of 2019 and early 2020, QTS 4.4.1 is definitely worthy of your time. Because, don't get me wrong, it may seem a little intimidating to you guys out there that don't have a handle of IT or network appliances. But at the same time, it is not that tough. And I do think a number of you could do well to stay on top of stuff like this, because it's a very low learning curve. It may seem high, but it really, really is not. And with that security counter in the background, as well as the help and guidance tools and security checks happening in real time in the background that you can monitor and interact with, or let the system do its job, it's never been a better time to consider moving into the world of QNAP. But I do look forward to telling you more about this and some of their new 2.5, 5GB and 10GB solutions starting very, very soon. But otherwise, click like if you enjoyed this, click subscribe if you want to learn more. And if you've got any questions or stuff I haven't covered, then do let me know in the comments, and I'll see you next time.